I walked into the kitchen and froze. Something felt wrong. The air carried a scent that made my heart skip. It was my perfume, the one Tom gave me 3 years ago on our anniversary. He said it reminded him of our first trip together, but I hadn't worn it in weeks. The bottle sat on the shelf with its cap slightly crooked. Someone had used it recently, and it wasn't me. Tom came home with groceries, smiling like nothing was wrong. He unpacked everything calmly while talking about his long day at work. He asked me nothing. That night at dinner, he barely looked up from his phone. When I asked about his new project, he gave short answers and changed the subject. Later, he fell asleep within minutes while I lay awake, staring into the darkness. The scent lingered on my pillow. It was fresh, not old. I thought about the small changes. He came home late, more often now. His phone never left his pocket anymore. He used to leave it on the table without a care. I wanted to believe I was imagining things, but deep down I knew the truth. The next morning he left early for a meeting. I cleaned the bedroom and found a long dark hair on his pillow. My hair is short and light. Everything else looked too perfect, too carefully arranged, like someone had been here and cleaned up before I noticed. That afternoon, I called his office. His assistant sounded surprised when I asked for Tom. "He's out today," she said. "He had a personal appointment." My hands went cold. He had lied. When he came home that evening, he looked fresh and relaxed. He kissed my cheek and asked about my day. I watched him move through the house as if everything was normal. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words stayed trapped inside me. That weekend he spent hours on his phone. When I suggested a walk, he said he was too tired. On Sunday evening, I wore the perfume and stood in front of him. He looked at me but said nothing. No smile, no recognition, nothing. That night I cried in the bathroom with the water running so he wouldn't hear. The following week I followed him. He said he had a client meeting, but I took a taxi and stayed behind his car. He stopped at a small cafe I'd never seen before. Then she arrived, tall, young, with long dark hair and a red coat. She hugged him like they'd done it 1,000 times. And then I smelled it. My perfume. She wore my perfume, and it filled the air between them. My stomach turned. They went inside, but I didn't follow. I told the driver to just drive. I cried the whole way home. When Tom returned that evening, I was waiting at the kitchen table. He didn't notice the change in my face, or maybe he chose to ignore it. I didn't sleep that night. I watched him breathe peacefully while I thought about all the years I'd given him, all the trust I'd placed in his hands. And now he was giving pieces of me to someone else. For days I played my role. I smiled when needed, cooked dinner, listened to meaningless conversations. I felt like an actor in a play I never auditioned for. I didn't tell anyone because I couldn't bear the pity. One night while he slept, I searched online for divorce lawyers. I only read their pages, looking at stories from women who had found the strengths to leave. The next day I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. Dinner for two, expensive wine. The same night, he said he worked late. Then I received a phone call from an unknown number. A woman's voice. "I think you know who I am," she said. She told me she didn't mean to fall in love with him, that he said I didn't care anymore. Then she said the words that broke something final inside me. "He gave me your perfume," said it reminded him of someone who used to make him happy. I hung up. The pain was sharp and clear. He wasn't confused or lost. He was cruel. That night I made my decision. I started packing slowly, taking important documents, clothes, anything that mattered. I called my sister and asked if I could stay with her. When Tom left for work the next morning, I walked through the house one last time. I touched the dining table where we used to laugh, looked at the bed where I once felt safe. Then I placed a letter on the kitchen counter telling him I knew everything and that I was choosing myself. I didn't sign it. I locked the door and left. My sister welcomed me with open arms and asked no questions. That night, I slept in her guest room, surrounded by clean sheets and warm silence. Tom called after 3 days. I didn't answer. He left messages, some angry, some pleading. I deleted them all. 2 weeks later, he came to my sister's house, but she turned him away. I cried that night. Not from sadness, but from release. I found work at a small bookstore. The days were quiet and healing. I bought new perfume that reminded me of nothing and no one. It was simply mine. Months passed and I moved into a small apartment filled with light. I painted the walls soft blue and surrounded myself with books and warmth. One afternoon, I returned to collect my last belongings. The house felt cold and empty. I found the perfume bottle on the bathroom shelf, half full. I opened it and breathed in the scent. It smelled the same, but it no longer belonged to me. It belonged to a version of myself that no longer existed. Back in my apartment, I sat by the window with tea and watched the world outside. I had left behind the woman who waited for love and became the woman who chose herself. I didn't need his apologies or explanations. I had forgiven myself for staying too long. And that was enough. The perfume he gave to someone else had set me free.